Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest, Jenn Foster. Jenn is one of today's national leading online and mobile marketing experts. She is the founder and CEO of Biz Social Boom, a company dedicated to helping business owners of all sizes thrive in today's highly technical world of product and service promotion. We are going to be talking about Jenn's podcasting experience, and she actually has been part of at least two podcasts I know of: Hot Chicks Write Hot Books and Elite Expert Insider. Welcome, Jenn.
Thank you. So excited to be on the show.
I'm really excited to talk to you today because as someone who is creating podcasts, we know that podcasting, it's not a fad, and it actually is going to become more and more popular because automobiles will automatically have iTunes, so people will be able to choose the content they want to consume. So podcasting or online radio shows are really hot. And the beauty of them is that they are not only happening now, but the content can be repurposed for other things. And of course, that's a whole nother avenue that we can talk about. But first of all, tell me more about why you decided to create a podcast.
Actually, when you were introducing the podcast, I did remember I also have a podcast that I did a year and a half ago that I still upload to called Increase Local Traffic with Jenn Foster. So that was the first podcast I
was on that
produced.
show.
You were. I interviewed you on that show. So the very first time I thought about doing podcasting or why I wanted to create a podcast was simply to get my name out there more. So my first podcast, Increase Local Traffic, was to get content and to interview people to make sure that we could figure out more ways to increase traffic. So the subject we were talking about online marketing. And the second podcast, which was Hot Chicks Write Hot Books, was simply to interview authors and to help other authors or people who were thinking about writing a book to know what to do when they're publishing a book. So both of them were to give people information. And the reason why we wanted to start them was to boost our business, to give our business a boost, or to give my first business a boost so that people would know, like, and trust you and could hear you and talk to you, whether you're interviewing them or they can listen and then they can leave comments. So it's just great. It's just great. I love podcasting.
Okay, so here's the question. You said you did it in order to boost your business. Did it help your social media consulting business and your book business?
Yes, definitely. So after doing the interviews and having it on iTunes, Stitcher, and other radio podcasting like SoundCloud and that sort of thing, I also uploaded them to YouTube. So now you have all these different places that people can find you. So now when people type in Jenn Foster SEO, or they type in, how to publish a book, or they type in, experts or elite publishing, they're going to find our podcast. They're going to find iTunes. iTunes ranks really high on the search engines. Not only that, is it boosted the business because on Facebook and other social media, we're posting links to the podcast. So instantly that tells all the people who follow you and all your friends, as well as all your business people and all the people who follow you on Facebook or on LinkedIn or any of those social platforms, that you're actively doing stuff in your business. It shows that you're willing to provide content. And when they listen to that, that gives you that instant credibility.
So, boy, you just provided a ton of really good information. And the last thing you said was the term instant credibility. So what you just outlined was a simple system. You have your podcast. you share the links via iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, and other places. And then, of course, you share it on Facebook, and also the people you interview share it with their friends. And then it kind of has like an expansive viral effect. So when you did, I want to ask you about Hot Chicks Write Hot Books. So when you did that particular podcast, were the people you were interviewing, obviously there were hot chicks who wrote hot books. Were they people who wrote books, or were they people you helped to write a book? Who were these people?
Sure. So a few of them were just authors who had written a book, and we wanted to understand the process that they went through. Some of them were self-publishers, and some of them were published with big house publishers, and some of them were going to be authors, so they hadn't quite published their book yet, but they're in the process. And then we also interviewed hot men too, not just hot chicks.
Okay,
so,
sure.
hot guys, we call them. But we interviewed both because we wanted to really get all the answers to publishing, right? To help them. So some of them were our authors, that because we do own the publishing company. So Elite Online Publishing has helped them to get their book published. So then we would interview them on the podcast after they had their book signing party, so we could get the whole effect of what was the process of writing your book. But we made sure that we did one a week. So we had a podcast one a week. So we actually have 39 episodes with that one.
So that is really an important concept about how often should you do your podcast. And you chose one a week. So 39 weeks which is what, about half a year, more than half a year's worth of podcasting. Did you try to do more than one a week?
We took off some of the summer because both of us are busy during the summer. So we usually did 2 every other Friday. So what we did was recorded 2 episodes every other Friday, which would give us 4 episodes a month.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So when you say we, who is your partner?
So my partner is Melanie Johnson, and we own the publishing company together, and we do book writing retreats down in Dominican and Cancun. So, so we did them together, which is a different concept because you have 2 interviewers instead of 1. So we have 3 people on.
Okay. So that would be really interesting. So tell me more about the dynamics of having an interviewee and having 2 interviewers. How did you divide up the work, I guess, and the interviews? Because I could imagine, because you were not together in the same location, right?
Right. That's right. We use YouTube Live or Google Hangouts to do our podcasting. And so how it worked is we would have specific questions that we told the authors we were going to be asking them. But then we would let them know at the beginning of the podcast that we're really just going to be having a conversation. Okay. So we would go through the questions, but we really wanted to make it a conversation. So we would take turns, Melanie and I, asking the questions. And of course, we would try to interject or say something when we felt like saying something without trying to, it's a little bit difficult because you don't want to talk over the other person. So so we just divided the questions, and then we had a conversation with the person and tried to make it interesting and fun.
So the nice thing about that is because you are using the YouTube Live or Google Hangouts, you can see the people. So you actually can see the body language so that you know when they're about ready to finish or if the other person is going to say something. So that's really ingenious to do a live video interview. Not only that, but because video interviews on iTunes is more rare, it actually makes your podcast stand out. Did you do that deliberately?
Yeah. So we thought about just doing audio podcasts, but because we already had chosen YouTube Live to be our, the platform that we were going to be recording, we thought, well, might as well just keep it the video. We can take out the audio and use that for another purpose, but just using it on video, it stays on. We actually edit them. We don't just leave it on YouTube Live. We take them down and edit the video so they have bumpers. And we take out a little bit, but we really don't edit too much other than that. So they have bumpers on each of the ends of the video. But then we upload it to iTunes and all the other places that it needs to be. So yeah, we just thought video would be great because my background with the increased local traffic is actually video marketing. So I knew that video is where it's at.
I absolutely agree with you. So your concept is a little bit different than a lot of podcasters, because a lot of podcasts are just an audio podcast, and they may produce them with an intro and an outro and music and everything. You have a new podcast. It's Elite Expert Insider. Can you tell me more about Elite Expert Insider? And I also noticed not only that, but a couple things I wanted to ask you about. One was about your cool 3D graphics that are in the intro there. And another is I noticed that Audible is one of your sponsors. And I wanted to ask you where'd you get your graphics? And how did you get Audible to be one of your sponsors?
Sure. So to start with Elite Expert Insider, so we decided to open a new podcast simply for the fact that not all of our interviews are with women, and not all of our interviews are with an author. A lot of times we're speaking to someone who's an expert at what they do and they haven't become an author yet. And we wanted to interview them maybe for the potential of them becoming an author with our publishing company, but also for the intention of really getting inside their heads at what they do, and not so much about their book, but about what they're doing to really help people with their expertise so that they can share that expertise with others. So that's why we created the podcast. And we'll continue to be posting onto that. The Hot Chicks Write Hot Books will probably maybe just continue doing one a month, depending on what authors we have coming through. But with Elite Expert Insider, to give you answer some of those questions, the graphics, we did a 3D graphic intro at the beginning with music. And we do that at the end as well. And if you want to know the tips and tricks of where to get that, we got ours on Fiverr. I'm sure you've heard of it before, but it's a place where you can go and get some whatever you need for $5. So we hired a great guy to do the 3D graphics for that. Before we had him do the 3D graphics, we had to provide him a logo. And so it's kind of interesting. We hired 2 people on Fiverr to do a logo for the podcast. And they said they did podcast logos, but it didn't really look like how we wanted. So we ended up using both logos and putting them together. So it worked out really well.
It's very, very nice. And
yeah,
that was one of the first questions. It was like, where'd she get that?
Yeah. And I have a background with Photoshop and, making websites and stuff. So it wasn't too hard for me to take those 2 logos, put them together and make it how we both wanted it. But then we submitted that logo to the 3D graphic artist who created that into a video intro with music.
Very, very, very nice. And tell me more about Audible.
Yeah, so Audible, simply, we wanted to have a sponsor at the beginning. One, to tell our listeners and make those who maybe might want to sponsor our podcast to understand that there is sponsors on our podcast. And 2, to help us earn a little bit extra income. So Melanie and I, we joined together as an Amazon affiliate. So our company has an Amazon affiliate. And I don't know if any of you have done affiliate programs in the past, but Amazon has an affiliate program where you can make money simply by redirecting traffic through your link instead of just having them go to Amazon to buy something. So we created a short link so that we could keep track of it. And I know this is probably too technical for some and way too easy for others. But we created a short link at bit.ly, bit.ly is a place where you can go and create short links. There's other companies that do short links as well. But we created a short link that goes to Audible with our affiliate link directly added to it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So if someone types in that link and joins Audible, we automatically get an affiliate bonus for them doing that. And then that also helps promote our business, Elite Online Publishing, because we want people to publish their books. We want people to read books. We want people to really, learn everything they can about being an expert at whatever niche they're in.
That's really interesting. So do you have any other sponsors besides Audible?
Right now, we just have Audible.
Okay. I think that's a really good tip, because a lot of times people don't realize that it could be as simple as finding an affiliate link on something that matches what you're doing. In Audible, of course, they're in the business of selling Audible books,
Yeah.
and a podcast, it is very congruent with their mission. And then, of course, it just helps you get a bigger name
Yeah.
attached to your podcast. So it's a
Right.
win-win all the way around. So I think that's a really good idea. So in your experience, because now you have 3 podcasts under your belt,
Yeah.
what do you think has been the secret ingredient to get your audiences to, number one, find you in the first place, and number two, stay engaged and want to come back to hear, the next episode?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think definitely making sure you have good people that you're interviewing, or if you're just doing a podcast on your own, like having that content that people want. Of course, making it intriguing and fun. I mean, we always try to make, like I said, a conversation. So we're really trying to get out of the person fun facts, fun things, ways that they became the expert they are, ways that they, became an author, funny things that happened to them in their journey, that kind of thing. So very uplifting and fun, which I think also helps for people to want more, because everyone always wants more laughter in their life.
Right. Well, so that since you brought it up, tell me something funny that has happened to you on your journey to become a elite podcaster.
Well, let me think of some. Probably one of the best. I don't know if it's really funny or not, but I belong to a few networking groups, and when I tell people that I own that I have a podcast and that I'm looking to interview experts, it's interesting the reactions you get. So a few of the reactions are like, "Whoa, holy cow, you have a podcast? Like, that sounds super hard, right?" And then other reactions you get are, "Well, I'm an expert. Like, why haven't you asked me to be on your podcast yet?" Stuff like that. And so it's kind of fun to be able to say that in the networking group and to ask people, will you be on my podcast? So one of our podcasts, which was a really great interview, is with Rob Schallenberger. And he has a company called Becoming Your Best, and a great book, a couple great books. But that book and his program, when we interviewed him, Melanie and I felt like we learned so much in that interview. So it was so uplifting for us. So we just kept thinking, wow, what great information that all of our listeners are going to get from him, right? And whether they go on to use his program or even just read his book or even just listen to the interview and nothing else, we feel like so grateful that we could share that with the world.
I think that's really important because when we interview someone, obviously, like I wanted to interview you. Number one, I've met you personally, and I know that you're a super rock star in everything you do. But more than anything, I really think that you have knowledge, like insider knowledge about podcasting, and only you have that specialized knowledge because of your experience. Because number one, you're a woman that makes you unique, and there a lot of podcasts are done by men, but so women bring a special perspective. And then of course you have the experience with the unique aspects of interviewing people, not only for podcasts, but to help them write their books. So that's a lot of specialized knowledge. So I just think that interviewing people, it's one of the things that I love to do personally, and the information that you gain, not only for yourself, but for your listeners, is just fantastic. So what is your favorite type of interview to do? Do you like formal interviews, conversations?
Yeah.
How has that process evolved from when you first started out?
Sure. Well, I definitely like the conversation the best. I mean, there's questions involved and you are going to be asking questions, but when you're having a conversation, it can lead to other questions that you're thinking. I mean, I think I definitely have not mastered the interview process, but if you look at the great interviewers out there, they're not only interviewing them with the questions they had in mind, but they're having a conversation with them.
Right.
And I think when you do that, you really get the best interview that you can get. Because I think in the beginning, you know, I had my questions and it would just be like question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And you got a lot out of it, but you didn't get that communication, that conversation feel. And so I definitely love doing the conversation.
I think you're right, because often when someone answers a question, it triggers other questions. And it makes me think about, like, for example, like what I want, you know, what do I really want to know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so how do you find guests for your show? Besides the where you just go, hey, I'm doing a podcast, come talk to me.
Right.
Do you will you interview anyone, or do you put them through a little bit of a process?
Well, yeah, we have a little process. We want to make sure, you know, for sure that they're the expert at their field. We do like to interview if they either have a book in process or they've already written a book, because that gives them the credibility. And then we do have a couple other criteria that we just want to make sure that they have. And really, it's just about us wanting them on our show and having a connection with them. And, you know, they don't have to necessarily have a big name, or a big, huge business or make a certain amount of money. But sometimes just by looking in their eyes, whether it's, you know, looking at their picture on Facebook or LinkedIn or looking at their, you know, across from them, you know, like that you connect with them and you want them on your show.
Well, that's interesting, because I think you're absolutely right. If you know, you can tell if someone's going to be a boring interview or a good one. And then some people just surprise you. I actually interviewed an actuary about divorce. And it was very interesting, because think about an actuary. They're very left-brained, and he was talking about very technical things. But actually, when he relaxed, he was very human and very warm. And he actually was talking about how important it is for people getting a divorce to work with people who can help them have a fair deal, because that's what the whole thing is all about. So it's very interesting on who we talk to. How do you keep up with all the changes and all the things going on technically, with the knowledge? For example, you talk about YouTube Live. There's Google Hangouts. Now there's Facebook Live. Tumblr is rolling into the mix, and I think Twitter even expanded how long that they're going to allow videos. How do you keep up on all these trends and topics so that you can have an intelligent conversation with these experts?
Well, you know, for me, I try and go to at least 2 conferences a year, marketing conferences or other conferences that are going to help me individually and as a marketer or a business owner. And that helps a lot. But also just kind of being immersed in it, you kind of, things come at you, you know, whether it's through an email list that you're on or a Facebook group that you're with, things come at you and you can learn the different things that are coming on. I think the biggest thing is just remembering that things are going to change and just rolling with it. You know, we have technical difficulties all the time. Melanie and I will get ready for the podcast with YouTube Live. And every once in a while, you know, they didn't know they didn't read it, or they didn't realize it, or we didn't communicate well enough for them to understand that it was a video podcast. So they're not ready for video. We've had that happen. Other times we've had it happen where they didn't know how to use YouTube Live, or they didn't even have Chrome installed. We definitely want to use Chrome when we're using YouTube Live. It doesn't work as well with Microsoft Edge or with Mozilla. So we have to have them download Chrome. So we have all the technical issues. Or we spend 15, 20 minutes just trying to get there. We like to use on the bottom of the screen what we call a lower third. And a lower third simply has their name, and you can put their website, or you can put who they are, like best-selling author or their business name. And so sometimes walking through just getting the lower third on takes 20 minutes, so because everyone has a different technique, is different with their tech. So
right.
When that happens, you just have to roll with it and go with it. So not always will we have lower thirds. And every once in a while, like just the other day, we had an interview where neither of our lower thirds would even work. Something was going on, whether they were updating Google or something with YouTube Live. We don't know for sure what was happening, or maybe our computers were just messed up that day. But we just said, that's all right. We'll just go with it, So we didn't have lower thirds that day, and that was okay. So you just go with it. And I think that's the biggest mindset you have to have is you're going to have problems and technical things happen, and you just keep on moving on.
I think that's actually a really good segue to this question.
Okay.
What have been maybe one or two or three big challenges that you've had to overcome to get out there so that you are seen as the authority?
Yeah, there's a lot, of course. There's a lot of challenges. I would say for me, there's a couple big ones. The first one was because I had these two, this new podcast, because I had these two podcasts under my belt. We've hired on a couple of interns and employees to help us out. And I've always done everything myself. So one of my biggest challenges was to let another person to edit the video before we uploaded it. And that has been a little bit hard for me. And not that they couldn't do it just as well, but just I'm used to doing everything because I just want to get it done, right?
Delegation.
So that was a huge challenge for me to just kind of let that go and say, okay, you do it. That was a little tough. So that was one of them. Other challenges have been, it is a kind of a challenge sometimes to find who to be on your podcast. Definitely LinkedIn and Facebook solve that challenge for us because we can go in and ask people to be on our podcast, and they're more than happy to be on. It's just searching out the ones that, searching out those experts. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of a challenge.
Well, you have had some pretty phenomenal leaders on your Elite Expert Insider show. I know that because I listened to the first 3 episodes. Uh-huh. And so you definitely have your guest list is pretty impressive. So if you were to advise a newbie podcaster or anyone who actually wants to be seen as an authority, either using a book or podcasting, what would some of your advice be?
Well, I was thinking about the first 3 we have on there, the first 3 podcast episodes. And, the first 2, Melanie ran into those ladies at a conference. So, I would say for a newbie, associate yourself. I think it's Jim Rohn who said, you become who you hang out with, the 5 closest people around you, something like that. I don't know the exact quote, but it's, the 5 people you hang out with the most is who you will become. So if you want to interview experts or interview people who, in a certain niche or certain field, then you need to go hang out with those people. So whether it's, with video, I think Melanie was at the VidCon, the Vid conference that was huge. She was there and got a few people to be on the interview there. Marketing conferences is where I've gotten a lot of found people to be on the interview, or simply just putting it out there that you're looking for experts to interview. I would say that just surrounding yourself with those people will give you a huge boost on anything you're trying to do. But definitely increase your podcast and get you some great interviews.
So how long have you been in the SEO, video marketing, book publishing business?
Well, it's been 13 years now that I've been in the video marketing and online marketing space. And it's been the last 3, almost 4 years now that I've been doing book publishing.
Oh, wow. So you've actually got a lot of experience because that goes way back to 2003?
Yeah. 2003, 2004, I started doing the web design and online marketing.
Right. And that's even pre-YouTube. So that was like MySpace days. So that is quite an extensive background. And like I said, everyone, I actually met Jenn through a Mike Koenig's event, and I think that we probably shared the stage at some point or
Yes.
something.
Yeah, we were both asked to be on a panel. That's right.
So it's always really interesting when you can watch someone who you've actually met just skyrocket to, with success. So your growth has been basically local marketing to the book publishing, podcasting kind of went hand in hand.
Yes.
With that. So of all the things that you've done, what has been your favorite thing that you've done?
Well, with the podcasting, I would say my favorite thing that we did, which we talked about kind of at the very beginning about repurposing or using your podcast for more than one thing, is Melanie and I transcribed our top 15 podcasts that we had in Hot Chicks Write Hot Books. And we transcribed them and we put them in a book because different people listen to podcasts than read books. Of course, some people who listen to podcasts will also read books, but I'm just saying you're going to reach a different audience. So we transcribed that and we wrote the book called The Book Writing Bible. And so it's expert secrets on how to write and publish a book. So it's kind of fun for us because we have that book together now, and that has skyrocketed a lot of the stuff that we've done as well. But yeah, I would say my most favorite is just, every time I interview someone, I learn something, and that's my most favorite thing is just learning.
I absolutely agree. That is really good. I think right there, that's a hot tip that everyone should listen to, is to take your podcast, select the best interviews, transcribe it, turn it into a book, and that actually lends more credibility to everything that you're doing. And was the Book Writing Bible a bestseller?
Yes, we got #1 bestseller on Amazon in 3 categories and a #1 bestseller in 1 international category.
Oh, cool. Well, that's really good. So now I should have introduced you, Jenn Foster, international best-selling author. Well, that is really fabulous. And I think, definitely everyone should listen to the Elite Expert Insider and go look at Hot Chicks Write Hot Books. I actually am going to do that. And what was your other podcast, the one about the local internet marketing?
Yeah, it's Increase Local Traffic.
Okay, because I want to go listen to me.
Yeah, Increase Local Traffic with Jenn Foster. And it's interesting because people will say, well, that was 2-3 years ago, so none of it is relevant. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like if you go back, yes, Google algorithms have changed, and yes, SEO is changing all the time, but there's certain aspects and certain things that are always going to be the same and always going to be constant.
I know. Go ahead.
You know what I mean, like with keywords and making sure you have.
I know that the interview I did, if I recall, we were talking about video marketing.
Yes.
So I know that information is still solid.
Yes, it's all still relevant.
Right, because I have been saying the same thing since I started in video marketing in 2009, and my story has not changed. So I know it's all based in truth because it doesn't change. And it is interesting because just the other day, I did an experiment to see if I could become the authority in something with making videos and ranking them. So I decided to work on political marketing for local campaigns. Sure enough, I made some videos, I ranked them, and my videos are all over under political marketing for local campaigns. And so it's like, okay, it still works, and a mutual friend of ours, Mike Lemoyne, also known as Fireman Mike, he actually posted in Facebook the other day where he actually ranked a video for the first time in years himself because he has a staff, and he was like, hey, I've still got it, And I know how he feels because, you delegate like what you said. And I think that's a really important thing. As you grow in your authority, you do have to, one of the things you've done, you found a like-minded partner. so that you can both work on it and grow together. You are focused on your book publishing, and your podcast is feeding into your main business. It's not the podcast is not your business, but it feeds your main business, and you're focused.
Yeah.
So I really think that those are really important. I wanted to ask you about any apps or any tools or software that you're finding is making your life easier as it relates to podcasting and book publishing.
Yeah. There's a lot of different podcasting tools out there. I've used TP&I Engage for a long time, and it works great. It's easy to get. What I like the most about it is not only do you have your RSS feed, and this is getting technical, but it's the information that tells all the podcast channels what to put on your podcast, if that kind of makes sense. It's your feed. But it has its own channel page, and then it has the iTunes link or the RSS link that you can submit to all the different places. And I know there's other podcasting apps that will work the same and do the same thing, but I really like that it has its own channel, so that on my website, for instance, if you go to eliteonlinepublishing.com/podcast, we have our podcast embedded in there. So I got that using that app with TP&I Engage. So I really like that they give you that page, if that makes sense, that channel page.
It's more page that you can embed into your regular website. Yeah, that's
yes. Great. Yeah, because not everyone is on iTunes. And of course, then it has the links there to subscribe to the podcast or to go and subscribe on iTunes. So either one. Whether you have, if you're a Droid person or a Apple person, or you don't have iTunes downloaded onto your PC or whatever, then you can listen to it in a different way. So that's one of the apps that I like using a lot. And for book publishing, we just help people self-publish their book on Amazon. So of course, Amazon and the Kindle, we use those tools a lot.
So with your book publishing company, you actually help people actually write their book, and then you help them with all the technical aspects of getting the covers made, formatting, and all the things that are typically obstacles for the average author. You take care of that, so you can offer them the services from A to Z, and they can get published, and then of course they may become a best-selling author.
Yes, that's exactly right. So we not only help them write their book and publish it with a good cover and good title and all those things, but we help them to become number one bestseller, and we also help them with their marketing. So we always have a marketing plan, and we always have a plan for their book. I mean, most of the books are self-help. Every once in a while, we will do a book that is fiction or a children's book or coloring book or something that's not a self-help type book. But regardless of what type of book it is, if you don't have a marketing plan, or if you don't have a blueprint of where you want that book to go or what you want that book to do for you and your business, then, it's just like anything. If you don't have a map, you can't get where you want to go.
Right. So. I think that we're going to have another interview in the future talking about how to write your book and actually how to create a marketing plan, because I think you've hit the nail on the head, because most people or inexperienced authors think that the book is the end, that they're going to make money with it, and really it isn't. That is not how you're going to make money with a book. It's really the beginning once you have the book. And so I think we could probably have a whole nother conversation all about how to use your book to grow your business. Yeah. So I hope that you're up for that sometime in the near future.
Sure. And I'm sure Melanie would love to do an interview as well.
Yeah. And, we could do a cool interview. I'm up for Hangouts or YouTube Live. So that sounds like fun. So is there anything else you would like to share with the audience?
Well, I would like to share, just because my whole focus right now with Elite Online Publishing is really helping people to find their story and to get their story written. And of course, eventually getting it published, but just the written part. And so I'd like to share, Melanie and I have some elite story starters that we have a series of 5 story starters that help you write your story. And it could just be simple as just writing you and your family's story for the year, like what you did for the year. We have a family story starter, or even just writing, your life and legacy story. A lot of people are getting older and passing away, and the knowledge they have inside their heads are not getting shared with everyone else. And so even just taking that little story starter, the life, leave a life of legacy story starter, you could give that book to someone and have them write their story down, whether they publish the book or not, but just write that story down so that they have a record, a life history record of their story. Because everyone has such a wonderful story to tell. And everyone, whatever story they have, you always learn from it. Everyone can learn from their story. So I would love it if, people just really took that to heart and wrote their story down. And I know not everyone journals, but it's almost like journaling. It's like answering those questions of, what is the very first memory you ever thought of? That kind of thing. Or the very first memory you can remember, right? Like, how old were you? What was happening? What did you do? And writing that down.
That's actually funny because as you said that, I remember I must have been 2 years old. I just saw myself riding a tricycle next to some bushes and a bee stung me in the eye.
Oh no.
So I, that was like, oh, and I remember, running and screaming, cause obviously it did that. But that is interesting how when you said that, immediately an image came to my mind of a first memory type thing.
Well,
so
and if you went and wrote that down, I guarantee that more memories will come back. Like then you'll remember, who you went to and what they said to you and how you felt and what the surroundings were like. And, all like other memories start coming to you when you remember stuff.
Right. And as you said that, I remember when I slammed my thumb in a 57 Chevy and I could see myself laying on this stainless steel table in the emergency room because obviously I still have the big scar on my thumb to prove that I lost part of my thumb when I was a little girl. So beautiful ideas. I love that. And I know I bought at least one of your story starter books because I remember reading it and thinking what a great story starter series it was. So I may even own more than one of those because when I buy things digitally, what happens is you end up kind of like this digital library that you forget about because it isn't physical. But I'm glad that you reminded me of that. So before I let you go, tell me where to find more information about you.
Well, you can find more information at Jenn Foster, that's 2 N's, JennFosterSEO.net, or you can go to EliteOnlinePublishing.com. And our books are on both of those websites, so you can find where you can get a story starter. And the physical story starters are only $10, so you can get one of those from Amazon. If you have Prime, it's free shipping. It's awesome. And you can start writing your questions down. And I always suggest, get a separate journal, or we provide separate journals if you want to buy those, or even just getting whatever book or notebook and writing it in that so you have more room. Or just using it in the little workbook that we provide and just writing stuff down. But you can find us at both of those places. And then, of course, at both of our podcasts, Hot Chicks Write Hot Books and Elite Expert Insider podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Jenn. I really appreciate all the time you took today. And again, just thank you. And you are definitely invited back.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Tammy.
So everyone, if you enjoyed this podcast today, please do share it and subscribe to it and go check out Jenn's books. Go to her websites and also go check out Amazon and the Story Starter series. And I'm sure that you'll really enjoy it because one of the things she said early on in the podcast was it's about laughing and having fun. And I certainly had a lot of fun today, so I really appreciate it. This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.